So having the IT background was fantastic. It's allowed me to learn programs and just pick things up a little bit easier. And coming into the AI and using it, I guess there's a lot of people out there, and AI isn't like a general program that it says, "Hey, this is what you're gonna need." So it can be a little bit hit and miss. To my understanding, with AI, so we'll say Stable Diffusion, it's built around NVIDIA graphics cards using the CUDA cores. So that's something to keep in mind. NVIDIA systems run the best on them. And then there's the understanding of, well, why does this graphics card run better than this graphics card, and so on. So I want to talk about that today and take a little bit of a look at Easy Diffusion as well. What I want to do is I want to show you guys settings that you can do in Easy Diffusion to speed up your system with slower graphics systems, so integrated systems and so forth. And we'll take a look at Easy Diffusion and doing that, and we'll talk about that more in depth. And of course, we'll go over and take a look at Easy Diffusion, but before we do, we'll just head over to the intro. So we'll go over and we'll, first of all, we'll show you where Easy Diffusion comes from, and then we'll talk a little bit about hardware to run it. Okay, so this is Easy Diffusion, and it's easy to download. You just click it and you install it, and I've done a video on that, so I'll leave a link below to how to do that. So that's Easy Diffusion. And you'd get your models from Civet AI, and you would download them. And I've done a video on understanding models and whatnot, so you can know how to use them. And of course, you would just download your models and put them into your models directory. So, you'd put them in here, you'd put your LoRa's in here, so your checkpoints in there and so forth, and then they'll come up into your Easy Diffusion when you're selecting them, and you've got lots of models to download from. So with Easy Diffusion, when you install it, the default model, Stable Diffusion 1.5 basic model, a lot has changed. A lot of these models that you download, if you don't have a high-end system, you want to keep away from SDXLs. So Stable Diffusion extra large models. They're going to need a lot more power in your computer to actually render, which means your render times are going to take a lot longer. So when you're doing it, and you've got a older system, and you come through and you say, okay, I want to download a checkpoint, I want to download a trained one, not just a merged one, and I don't want the SDXL models, I only want the SD 1.5s. 1.4s are bad. The 1.5 LCMs are cut down. They do work faster, but they can be hit and miss with artifacts. I'd recommend for a starter, use SD 1.5. You can move on to try a couple of SD 1.5 LCMs if you wish. Like I said, they will generate the image faster with an LCM, but they don't pay that much attention to the language so much, and they're a little bit more basic for the details. So remember your filters when you're downloading. And then, of course, what you're looking at is the style of the way it's going to render. Some of them are designed just to render animes. Some of them are fantastic for rendering people. So go through, find what you're after. If you want cartoon characters or 3D or weird creatures, go through, find something which is going to suit what you want to do. So there's some really cool ones. You get more and more models if you've got the hard drive space for it. So, yeah, this is nice, colourful. Colourful actually do quite a beautiful number of models, and they it covers a broad range. I've used a few of their models, and it goes from fairly realistic people to, just weird cyberpunk style things to even 3D characters and cartoon style renders. So it's got a beautiful training across the board. So let's talk about hardware. And I'm going to use a friend of mine's computer as an example. And here it is here. This is the Dell Inspiron 3910 desktop. Now, it's an expensive computer. Let's not kid. It's quite expensive. And we've got to look at that and we're going to go, well, why is it so expensive? And, well, if it's that price, it's got to be fantastic across the board. And to a certain degree, this is actually a really good computer. But when we're talking AI, AI is all about graphics. So let's have a look at this. Let's find out what we're paying for here. 10 terabyte SSD. I do have to wonder if that's true. SSD stands for solid state drive, which means it has no mechanical components in it whatsoever. Normal hard drives are just 10 terabyte, and then I'll say 7200 RPM or something like that, or just say 10 terabyte hard drive. That's an SSD there. That is a massive solid state drive. So if it's got that in there, 10 terabyte SSD, that alone equates to a lot of this price. Just let the truck go past. It's hot in Australia, so I don't have air conditioning, so I just have the house open. I'm lucky enough that today is only 27 degrees. We're going to have 4 days as of tomorrow of 40-degree heat. I don't want to be filming in that heat. I'm going to be passed out pretty much. Okay, so let's talk about that 10 terabyte SSD. Let's have a look at my local computer store. Nice computer store across all of Australia. And we can see here there's a Crucial, and that's a 4 terabyte at $1,154. That's expensive. That's only 4 terabyte. So, if that's a 10 terabyte SSD, that is where your money is in that system, no doubt about it. And well, from my point of view, a 10 terabyte SSD, that's cheap for that system. So there's the 10 terabyte mechanical drive, so just HDD. Okay? So you'd hope that they didn't, well, 2 S's, you're not going to be really making a spelling mistake there. So that's that. Let's have a look at 10 terabyte SSDs. Do they exist? Yes, they most certainly do. Here's the Kingston 8 terabyte. Of course, with rounding, they've actually written the true measurement of what your storage will be on there. So you will have a 7.6 terabyte. So there she is there. Generally used in servers. Very expensive. So let's go back and have a look at this. What else have we got? We have an i9. Well, i9s aren't cheap. We can come through here and we can just go i9. Okay, we might be better off going down to CPUs, and then we'll just come across to the platform. So the Intel LGA 1700. So here we are here, and let's find out what that one is. It's an i9, and it's a 12900. Bad way to read it, isn't it? So we come through. Way these listed, so obviously these, no, there's 13. Okay, so we've got a slight odd number for that. But we can surmise there's a 12400, and that's a 12900. So we can have a look at that and we can say, well, that's a 300 to a 300 plus CPU. So there's quite a bit of value in there. The RAM, 64 gig of RAM. Naughty little buggers haven't listed what that RAM actually is. When it comes to that motherboard for, oh, here we are here, they have listed it. Okay, I stand corrected. Usually we would expect to see DDR5, so this has the cheaper RAM, but I don't know if the speed of that RAM is in these specs. It doesn't have it. So he had to download CPU-Z. Highly recommended program. You download CPU-Z, it's going to tell you what your motherboard is, what your socket is, what your RAM is, what your RAM speed is, the speed that your processor is running at. So his is running at 3 point something gig, not the 5.2. So, and when we come and look at it, the motherboard in this unit is like most what we call baked bean computers, where they've been packaged for sale. These ports here aren't on a cable that goes to a motherboard and plugs in, like, you know, the higher end motherboards and higher end systems. These are actually on the motherboard itself, the hard connected, and then you have the back ports hard connected. So we can't take this motherboard out and really and put it in another case. We can, but we're going to lose all these I/O ports here. We won't have access to them. Okay, we'll only have access to the back. The other problem is the proprietary pins for the power on this motherboard is only a 6-pin for the power to the entire motherboard. So he went to Best Buy and asked, well, can I put a 4070 Ti graphics card in there? And they've turned around to him and said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. But you're going to need a bigger case because it's not going to fit in the case. What they didn't look at is the power connector is only a 6-pin. That means a normal power connector is 24 pins. So it's applying a lot of power to the components inside, from your CPU to your GPU socket, so your PCI Express lane. With a 6-pin, you're not getting the power required on the PCI Express to actually run a high-end graphics card. That is a problem. The other problem is they didn't tell him that the power unit in here actually only has 2 cords running off it. It has one cord to power the CPU itself and one cord to power the motherboard. All CPUs are powered, so when you go to a high-end one, they usually have, some of them will have one 8-pin, some of them will have 2 4-pins, and some of them will have one 4-pin. This one is, I believe it was a 1 4-pin. So not getting the voltage that it would really want to see the max performance out of that i9, so that's something interesting. But there's only the 2 cords on that power supply. There is no cord to supply power to the graphics card. Graphics cards require power from 2 points. They require it from the motherboard itself, so the PCI Express slot, and they require it also plugged directly into the graphics card, because high-end graphics cards are greedy little buggers that want a lot of power, and that is why they are so good at doing AI and, you know, gaming with high-end graphics. So can we upgrade this? Absolutely. We can pull out the RAM, we can pull out the CPU, we can pull out the hard drives, and we can just go out and buy a case, a new motherboard, a new power supply, and put the CPU, the RAM, and the hard drives all onto that new motherboard. And with the new power supply, we can then get our graphics card and drop the graphics card in. It's actually really simple, except for the CPU. The CPU is really delicate, so you have to be careful taking it out. You'll need some new thermal paste when you put it on as well. A handy little hint when you're removing your CPU is something called dental floss. Take the dental floss and just run it very, very carefully, as tight as you can, across the top of your heatsink to cut the thermal paste. So when you pull your heatsink off, it's not glued to the CPU and rips all your pins out. Of course, be careful you don't go too low and actually go across all your pins. So running it and heating up your system and doing it while the system is actually hot, not while it's on. So run it until it's hot. So run it for about, I don't know, 45 minutes. Turn it off, and then you can usually go nice and easy through with the dental floss. Sometimes you don't have to do that. You can just give it a little jiggle and it might just turn freely. So that's the scary part, is the CPU when transferring over. If you know someone, friends, families, there's a lot of kids out there now into computers, They become cheaper when it comes to buying the parts, except for at the moment the graphics card industry is killing computers by having their prices too high. With the prices too high, it's stopping people actually going out and building computers, and they're going, bugger it, I'm just going to buy a gaming console. I'm going to buy myself a tablet and just be done with. So we're talking iPad, great for, you know, quick little games and stuff like that, and they've got a lot of power where you can do office applications and plug a keyboard into it and plug it into your monitor and so forth. So really the graphics card company need to reduce their prices. That said, building a computer from scratch isn't too bad in prices. So graphics cards, let's talk about graphics cards. That's an interesting one. Let's take a look at mine. GTX 1070. And we're going to type specs. Okay. And we'll take a look at it here on NVIDIA's website. And why graphics cards are different. We've got people out there. Oh, that's the other thing. We'll come back over here. He's run Stable Diffusion on this using Easy Diffusion. And his original render with the base model was, I believe it was about an hour. After changing that model and doing a couple of settings, which we'll talk about later, he was able to bring those render times down to, I believe it's about 8 minutes on average. So maybe we can get that a little bit faster. So that's not bad for an onboard graphics card. That's pretty decent considering it's not got CUDA cores on it whatsoever. Okay. So back to talking about graphics cards. So some people have got 1650s, which is obviously a lot newer than me old GTX 1070. Other people have got the 2050s and the 2060s, and they're like, well, hang on, you know, as your old 1070 is still faster. RAM. You might have GDDR, which stands for Graphics DDR, RAM. But you might have your graphics onboard video RAM. You might have the DDR5, or you might have DDR4, or you might have DDR6. Now, sometimes DDR5 is still faster than DDR6. Why is that? It's got to do with the clock speed of the actual RAM that they're using itself. See if it's got the specs for that. Some sites list it and some sites totally ignore it, and I might be looking past it. We're seeing the GPU itself, we're seeing the specs of that, and we're seeing these 8 GB, but we're not looking for that. We're looking for the bit of the actual RAM itself. So that one doesn't have it. So let's take a look at Asus. Gonna be very hard to find specs. Okay, we'll try. Mine's an EVGA. Might find the specs on that. Okay, here we are here. Beautiful, beautiful. This is what we're looking for here. Okay, right there. Memory bit width, and then it says 256 bit. Here's the interesting thing. Let's take a look at an RTX 3060 memory bit. It's only 192 bit. So ironically, this is almost as fast in the real world as what the 3060 is. But if we have a look at the 3060 Ti, which is a cut down 3070, you'll see it's got 256. This is exactly the same as what the old 1070 was. Okay, so we have We know this is DDR5, and on this one we have DDR6 and 256-bit. So this is a lot faster than the old 1070. Now this one, on the other hand, is with the DDR6, but the lower bit rate is almost the same as the old 1070. And then we have a look at the 1660s and so forth, and we see that 60. And we see they're cut down as well, so forth. And we have a look at the something like the we'll take a look at the 4070. Okay. Oh. There we go. Okay, the 4070, interesting. So the 4070 has only got 192. Now, the interesting thing is, those that have got the 3070s are finding them faster. I wonder why that is. Let's have a look. Ah, there we go. So that's interesting. So the only way to get better performance and speed when it comes to AI, and probably in some games as well, is not getting the 40 series, but actually getting the TI. Oh, it's not showing me the TI. We want the TI. Show us the TI. I want to see that memory bit. It's not going to show the TI. The TI is 256 as well. And the interesting thing is we come into the 90. Let's have a look at that. And we have a whopping 384-bit memory. So why is the 4090 so fast at rendering AI? It's not really got to do with the clock speed of the GPU at all. It's all got to do with that memory. It's got more memory, so it can hold all the information it needs in there. And it's got that pass-through bit rate right there, which just makes it blindingly quick. So when you're looking at AI and you're looking at upgrading your system and you're looking at what you're using, it's this here that makes the world a difference. More video RAM, 8 GB minimum is what you want. And then you want that bit rate to be as high as possible. The higher, the better. I would not recommend below the 256. 256 is where I'm at. That's, to me, that's the entry level. If you want something decent, you need it to be 256-bit memory. Otherwise, you're going to get some bottlenecks, and from your previous generation, you might just be like, this isn't much better. What did I pay for? And what that is doing in the graphics card market, and you can see this when you talk to people, people aren't buying the 4070s, and they're not buying the 4060s. They're like, well, hang on a minute, I've got a 3060 Ti, and I'm seeing people that have brought this, and they're like, oh, you know, it's only getting 5 frames more, or not even that. It's only getting a slight bump increase, and then they're running programs like AI, and they're like, oh, it's actually slower. So a lot of people skipping generations. NVIDIA, if you ever see this video, think about that. What we want to see in the market is we want to see something like a 3050 Ti or a 3060 Ti, or we'll just say the 450. We'll say the RTX 450, so the new generation. What we want to see is that RTX 450 with 256-bit memory, 12 gig. Give us that card. Why do I want that card? I want it for AI rendering. Give us a little bit of CUDA cores if you can. I'd love some more CUDA cores. They certainly help. The more CUDA cores, the merrier. But I want that fast memory. I need that fast memory when it comes to AI. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. So let's go over now and we'll take a look at Easy Diffusion a bit, and we'll have a talk about that. So this is obviously a long video today. Now remember, when we're opening up Easy Diffusion, she's a little bit slow to begin with, because that first load, it takes a bit as it goes through, and it scrapes all my files and libraries. So we'll let that run for a moment. And we'll talk about easy diffusion. Okay, so now let's take a look at easy diffusion and talk about a few things. So after you've done that setting, I'm going to come into here and we're going to testing a couple of things out. I'm going to put the image size down here, 512 by 768. Flip that if you want to. So now I'd love to see you guys test these settings. Let me know what your render speed is and let me know what graphics card you're running and what system you're actually running. So I'm going to just put in here gridiron helmet placed on a football field. I love the fact that Microsoft is embedded, so the spell check for the accessibility actually comes up here, which helps me out greatly. Now, if I do this, it's probably going to put a head in there. I would bet that. Now, I want to show you guys something. There's steps here. Drop it down. I'm going to drop it all the way to 8. What are steps? I'm painting a picture. Take my pencil, and I've got my canvas, and I sketch what I'm going to paint. So let's say I am painting a gridiron helmet. I'm going to draw my gridiron helmet with lead pencil. That's my first step. Second step might be adding some shading with that lead pencil so I know where I'm going to actually be putting things. Second step. And then let's say we move straight on to the painting from there. And we paint our helmet the color that we're actually looking for, and then we paint our background with their base colors. So that's our third step. And then I decide that I want to do some shading on it. So I start the shading. And then I'm going to put the shadows in. And then I'm going to do the outline. But we're cutting those steps out, so they're not there. That's what we're doing here. We're cutting steps out, so there's less detailed of an image, but we don't always need a high detailed image, and we can start out small and then work the way up. So let's go to 20 steps. That's the base everyone says. And let's go to 5.5 on the guidance, which is generally where we want to start out for most people. Okay. We've selected Epic Realism for our model, which is an SD 1.5 model and a fantastic model. So we have gridiron helmet placed on a football field. Let's see what happens. We're going to hit render. Okay. Guidance. So let's talk about guidance. First of all, this I've typed in 35mm camera, and then I've got a comma, because I'm saying to the AI, this has been taken with 35mm camera. That's important because it's like, this isn't drawn, this isn't animated on a computer, this is taken with 35mm camera. Realistic photo. I want this to look real. Stop. And then I'm telling it what I want. I want a gridiron helmet placed on a football field. I didn't say sitting on a football field, because sitting specifically is related to people with legs and animals and so forth. So you'd be getting a person sitting on the football field. So we're lazy with our English language. If I say to you, I'm going to sit this cup here, that's fine. But correctly, it would be, I'm going to place this cup here. So when we're using AI, we really need to think about what we're actually doing for that prompt. And for someone that has writing difficulties and spelling difficulties and speech and English issues, that's saying something. We're lazy as people when it comes to talking. This one was great. Now, we want to avoid this, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down to negative prompt, and we're going to put in person and head. I do not want people. And then, to give it more control, we're going to put empty. And then to give it more control again, we're going to put a bracket on empty, and a bracket on at the end of helmet. So empty gridiron helmet. Pay attention to this AI. Then I'm going to do column. I'm going to put 2. Pay attention to this a lot. 0. You can ignore me if you want to. 3. I don't care if you ignore everything else. Concentrate on this. I'm going to go for that even balance there. Different programs are used different for the way weights are entered. This is specifically Easy Diffusion's way. Okay, empty gridiron helmet placed on a football field. Now we're going to run that again. And we'll have a look what we get this time. So we have now added negative prompt, person and head, and we have added weight to the empty gridiron helmet. Again, there's a long wait there. It's not that long. We can see here we're getting that photorealism, so that's really good. We've got some nice light shining on there. So as we drop these steps down that we were talking about earlier, we might lose that. So, you know, if you want a really detailed person's face, you'd probably put it up to about 30. We can add a 1 touching the word helmet. That says to the AI, it's 1 helmet. If you put the word 1 before it, it's kind of ignored. You know, if you put O-N-E, it's ignored. If you put 1 space helmet, it's ignored. AI seems to be programmed to pay attention to 1 helmet as 1 thing. That's the other thing. You don't have to be a good speller. You can be worse than me and not use spell check. You can have your dyslexia and have letters missing, but they're converted to 1s and 0s by the AI. So usually if you write something wrong, it's still paid attention to. So that's fantastic. Let's keep that. Love it. Now, let's talk about speed. Let's speed this up. I'm going to keep it on 5.5. We're going to drop it down to 8 steps from 20 steps. Let's see what happens with our picture. Let's see what happens with our time. Here we go. 27 seconds. 27 seconds. We've gone from 1:14 to do 2 images in 24 seconds. It's 15 seconds an image. And what we're seeing here is a beautiful image. There might be a little bit of artifacting on that, but we can run more now. And, you know, going from that to that, sure, the grass is a little bit more monotone with its color. You know, there's not much of a difference. I mean, look at that. Let's have a red. Let's see if we can get a red helmet there. I'm going to run that. 8 again. I mean, from that to that. You can see the reflections, shadows, the highlights. We talked about reducing the steps, using painting as a metaphor. And we can see they're less. Even here, we can see the shine. This helmet's bad, but we can see there's shine there. There's not as much reflection going on. Let's see what happens if we trick this and we put the word detailed in there. Not a basic helmet, it's a detailed helmet. Let's have a look how that goes. A mess on that one. Know what we'll do here? We'll put this up to 7. So that's going to be our next run. We'll 7.9. Let's go 7.5. Go too high, it will get messy. Looks like it's got some eyes in the back of it there. Still a good image. Look at the speed. So we can get our AI tuned in and then we can go, okay, now I want more steps. Or you can just come on here and go, okay, now do the steps. Look at that. What a beautiful helmet. Now we've got the word detailed in there. And what we could also do for the next one is we can put our brackets, column 2. We're going to add weight, you know, want this detailed, pay attention to adding detail to it. And we can see these speeds are still quick. A bit of a pause there. It's likely to be, keep in mind I am recording at the same time I'm doing this, which does affect the speed and can cause glitches because I'm coding the video directly through my graphics card. Detailed. We can also put in vector lighting. Vector lighting tells it, light from different directions, and it's basically like if you're in a studio, or like I've got these lights set up to add more light onto a subject. So vector lighting. We can see we're getting, there's still good results any way you look at it, and we're coming down from, this one was our first one, this one's the reduced steps, and we can come through and go, okay, that was a 5.5, we can see it's only 8 steps. We don't like that one, we'll remove that. I don't like that one. Sometimes it's not going to kick out the best. There you go. Now we've got more details in there. So we can run again with vector lighting. And watch these speeds. Why are we getting these speeds? Because I've set it up under the settings as low for the GPU RAM usage. And I've come through. I've selected a small image size. We can always upscale that later with the program. And I've put those steps down to 8. Okay, maybe a little bit too much. Might be because of the word vector lighting, and it might be thinking, okay, well, vector lighting is used in a studio. Studios are generally taking pictures of people. But we're getting one there, and we certainly have that vector lighting. So, okay, that's that. Let's remove all these. I think we have enough of an understanding about weight. I think we have enough of an understanding about steps. I always render 2 to 3 images. I usually do 2 on this one. And then I work my way up and do the adjustments and so forth. And if I'm really happy, I'll run multiple bats. What is VEA? VEA is refiner. It's like running a second model over top of your first model to try to get more details in there. Don't run it. Most models don't need it now anyway. As you can see by those renders, they're great. I'm going to load up a control net. I've opened up this picture of a cat. It'll be on none normally by default. I'm going to come through and I am going to select line art realistic. I would choose line art realistic for pretty much everything in my opinion. If you watched Kreiter pose control, that'll explain what poses are. It's colored stick figures to say, hey, arm over here, leg over here, head in this direction, so forth. Canny, can't remember what that is off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up again. Depth is like a heat map, so it shows how much depth something should have foreground to the background. Line art realistic is what is my go-to default. So we'll come up here. Gonna leave the word detailed in. And this is a cat in a garden. Cat in a garden. Nothing more to it. We're leaving the photo, the 35mm camera, leave photo realistic in there. Gonna leave detailed in there, cat in the garden. That's an animated cat. It's a sort of 3D sketch type drawing in the first place. See what this can do. I'm gonna leave it on 8 steps. I'm gonna leave it on 7.5. We're gonna run it and see how this affects time. There's our kitty cat turned into a black and white sketch image. We can download this and we can open this up in a paint program, 36 seconds for 2 images. We can download that and put that into a paint program, and then we can paint out with black the entire garden so there's no garden. And then we can describe any background that we want in. So we can say cat sitting on a bed and so forth. And we'll get our cat, and then anywhere that's black will be generated as whatever we're describing. So keep that in mind. There's our cat in the flower garden. Okay. We have a look at this, we're like, okay, we've got flower there, we've got flowers there. Yep, We've got a bit of trees in the background. It's paying attention to our image. If we turn this down, it will pay more attention to it. So I'm going to show what happens. I'm going to put on 1.1 and watch the kick out. Watch the results. Still going to take 36 seconds. It's going to take 36 seconds to essentially redraw the image that we already have, because that guidance is too low. We're waiting for it. We're waiting for it. There it is. It's not bad. I mean, it's a basic color. It's kind of like going through and putting basic water paint over top of your painting and that. So it's not bad. That might be what you want. So it depends what you're heading for there. So, yeah. You got to find the balance on this one. I always say that. You need to find the balance. Some things are better lower. Some things are better higher. It depends what we're actually chasing for. That one's good. So we can do our cat again. That's it. So I think this video is not really to talk about this in prompting, but if you're new, it will help. This video is to say, if you've got hardware which is not the best, do these settings and play with it and see how you go. And you know what? I've never tried one step, so we're gonna put that on one step. This will be an absolute mess. I'd be amazed if it's not, because I can imagine it's just going to be like, well, okay, how am I going to do this in one step? Especially with the way diffusion works, we'll see. I can't stress enough that I am encoding these videos through my graphics card while doing the renders, which can cause pauses and the glitches. When you're using AI, try not to have a video running or doing anything in the background. You can see what I mean. One step is just nothing. So let's go up. We're going to do each one. This will give us a nice visualization to what's actually happening. 2 steps. AI's going, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? 7 seconds. It's pretty quick. That's not bad. That kind of looks like a, you know, an old painting or an old picture. Not bad at all. Let's go 3 steps next. So, which, you know, depending on what you're doing, you don't need a lot of steps. If you're just doing a basic picture that like this, that you want it just colored, then look at that. That's perfect. In fact, that is better than that, unless you want something that's realistic. It is better than that. So excited there. 8 steps, 7.5. 8 steps, 7.5. So, you know. This one here, 2 steps, 7.5. This is beautiful. This is, I love this. I gotta save those. I love them. 3 steps, 7.5. How fast was that? 4 steps. Let's have a look. Let's see what time we kick out. Itch there. 17 seconds. 2 images. That's 8 seconds each. Wow, that's... So we got our realism starting to come in at 4 steps. There's some artifacts around the face, shadowing that's not quite there to give it that realism. That's beautiful, though. I love that one. So we're going to put 1 more step on it. 5. Remember, we're doing 8 steps to get those helmets. And remember, we're doing 8 steps to get realistic kitty here. Realistic kitties are 8 steps. 1 step. Lord knows what's going on. 2 steps. Not bad. Like, depending on that sort of artistic style that you're looking for. Not bad. Look at that. So, 5 steps, we have a beautiful image. And we have, I think it's 14 seconds on the render there. Have to go back and look at that. kind of got excited looking at how good these pictures were, and didn't look at my render at 5 steps. So waiting for that number. 22 seconds, so 10 seconds an image. So imagine that if you're running 8 minutes, you could drop those steps down and essentially get 2 minutes. And that is, or 1 minute per image. That is far less of a headache than trying to do your refining and having to wait a long time. Which means, effectively you'd be getting the speed that I get at the 20 steps. So, go back up to that 20 steps. Let's have a look at that again. And that's something definitely to keep in mind. You can run it on an older system. So we're getting about, what's that? 75 seconds each renderer about there at 20 steps. So that speed is insane when you've got it down on lower steps. Absolutely insane. We'll let this finish. So depending on what you're doing, if you're just trying to do cartoons and drawings and you don't want realistic, lower those steps down, you don't need them. Or clip skip. Okay, I've talked about this in understanding models. You've got your layers. The very last layer is throwing in more details onto your image. Clip skip turns off the last layer. Generally, I'd love to see, some of them say how many layers you want to turn off. This one looks like you're only turning the 1 layer off. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here. We're going to drop this down to, where was our happy medium? 5 steps. And we'll go back to 5 steps. And stop that one. Pretty much know what it's going to look like. And we're going to, you can see how it builds the image, static on static on static, until it builds up an image. Let's have a look at the speed of this clip skip on. 22 seconds. Not much of a difference ignoring that last layer. And we're looking at the comparison of that. Love Kitty. I'm going to save Kitty. We'll remove that. We're comparing that to that. Not much of a difference. I can see there's more defined sharpness on the outer edges. There's less feathering in and less blending. So, which, depending on what you're actually chasing for, you might want that to not be feathered in as it's feathered here. So, and that's clip skip. So there we go. I'm doing this video because there's a misconception that you need good hardware. And there's also not an understanding from a lot of people using AI that aren't computer literate of knowing why some systems are faster than the others and what the difference is. Easy diffusion, in my opinion, is still better than Focus. There's a lot of people saying Focus, Focus, Focus. What I don't like about Focus, at least last time I used it, is it didn't have control net in it. And nice renders, but it didn't have the control that Easy Diffusion does. I think personally Easy Diffusion is better for a beginner. Sure, you may have to go through and actually type, your style name. So, you might have the word oil painting in there, or animation in there, or cartoon in there, or 35mm camera in there. So, but overall, it's far easier, far better, and in my opinion, it's a lot faster to use. So I'm hoping this helps people out. And if you're wondering, can I use it? Yes, you can. Because if we look at that Dell, it's just got an onboard Intel graphics processor, which is using 8 gig. Now, onboard, use the RAM that's in your system. So it'll be using 8 gig of your DDR RAM. So that's the other thing. If you've got an onboard in your system and you have slow DDR4 RAM, then your renders are going to take longer than someone that has that exact same GPU with faster RAM in their system. So if you, I'd love to see in the comments below what you're running. What I'd like to see and hope to see and come across is someone running the same hardware, but with different spec RAMs. I'm running 3600 megahertz RAM in this system, but I'm using the graphics card, don't forget, so we're ignoring that. But if it was an onboard graphics card with 3600 megahertz compared to, say, DDR4 1333 megahertz, obviously 3600 is going to be a lot faster, which would speed up your onboard graphics. Sometimes a cheap upgrade by just changing the RAM is worth it. If you don't have the money to do a big upgrade your RAM. Especially if it's on board and you're getting fairly decent results. So, and what sort of results are you looking for? How far do you want to push the AI? If you're new to it, sometimes it's better off just being happy with what you've got until you get the hang of it and play with it, and then research and learn more and more and more. And I'm not seeing that in AI videos that I'm watching. No one really talks about the hardware. And a friend of mine's running it, as I said, I think it's about 8 minutes for his renders. I believe that is at 20 steps as well. So we're going to cut him down after seeing this video. We're going to drop him down to 8 steps, and we're going to speed him up, and we're going to see what we can get out of that. And I'll leave it in the comments below on what speed he's getting on that Dell system. So yeah, leave a comment below on what you're actually running. I'd like to see it matched to these specifications of 512 by 768. Maybe run the same prompt and see how fast it runs, because obviously the more details in the prompt and the more detailed the image, it may affect that render time as well. Don't forget, like, subscribe, get the bell on, and yeah, leave a comment, share this video to your other social medias, because I mean, obviously anyone getting into AI, this is a very important video to see, you know, how much of a potato computer can I run it on? I actually hate that word, so it's something someone else uses. So yeah, we'll see what sort of systems you can run it on. Not everyone's got money to go out and buy a U-Boot system. And this is an old system. This is, if you're wondering what this system is, it's an AMD 3600. It is DDR4 3600 megahertz RAM, and it is running the GTX 1070 Superclock by EVGA. It has a 1 terabyte solid state drive in it, and it has a 4 terabyte 5400 RPM mechanical drive, which is on its way out. So, and I don't have the money to replace it. Something that needs to be done. Like, subscribe, get the bell on for notifications. Comment below on what your render speeds are, what system you're actually running it on, and I will see you in the next Streamtabulous video. Thank you for watching my video and sticking around to the end. If you like my videos, it'd really help me out if you could like and subscribe. It helps the YouTube algorithm to push my videos out there to more viewers, which in turn helps me and helps everyone. So thank you for watching my video and hanging around to the end, and I will see you in the next video.